What was your fuck it, done helping others moment? Was donating baby/toddler clothes to a mom in need through one of those Facebook donating pages. She didn't have a car, I did, so I drove 30 minutes away to deliver the stuff all for free. Got in a bad accident less than 5 blocks from her house. So I texted her to see if she could come get what she was able to because my car was totaled. She wouldn't walk the 4 blocks, then reported me to the group and got me kicked out for not following through. I ended up with a fractured sternum. Yeah, fuck that shit, never again. This one breaks my heart. You have a lovely soul and I hope you feel better now. The audacity of Facebook beggars never ceases to amaze. I'm a teacher. A parent of a former student contacted me in an emergency situation, couldn't afford to pay bills, and needed help. She was super helpful to me in my first year teaching, so I asked friends and family to help out and raised her about $2,000. Never again. She has contacted me every few weeks since then, always with a new reason why she needs more money, and when I offer food and clothing resources, she refuses it. It has placed me in such an awkward situation and I regret ever trying to help her out in the first place. Have you tried setting hard boundaries? I did a chunk of volunteer work where I was regularly dealing with people like that. They just keep popping up if they think they can pressure you or wear you down. Apply for resources and help through the local job and family services. I can't help you further. More than likely, you'll get an angry outburst where they try to push your boundaries and get you to cave. I would respond with bored indifference. Okay. I have work to do. Goodbye. And then hang up. Repeat that a couple times and they usually drop off. Don't offer anything, don't be nice, but don't be rude either because that gives them ammunition to complain to your supervisor about. Bored indifference and I gotta go. You may also want to let your supervisor, principal, know what's going on so they aren't surprised by a random complaint about you if she tries that angle to get even. Never feel bad for doing what you felt was the right thing. What happens afterwards is a different storyline. What you did in that one moment is good regardless. Had a friend years ago who was a bit self-centered and prone to stretching the truth, but he was a nice enough guy with a rough backstory and my friend group liked him, so I cut him a lot of slack. I like to host and I have friends staying over pretty regularly. Back then, I usually had 1 or 2 people spending the night on any given day. Anyhow, over the span of a couple of years this guy starts abusing that, staying over for days or even weeks at a time, eating my food and drinking my liquor without contributing, that sort of thing. While constantly talking about his grand plans and daydreams as if they'd already happened. A little sad, but also pretty annoying after a while. Anyhow, I sit him down one day and let him know he's gotta head home, and that he's free to come over and hang out, but I'm not comfortable with him staying over for the time being. He leaves, I think it went remarkably well, and head out to work. And it turns out that he broke in while I was away at work and stole a bunch of my sister's things because his birthday was coming up and neither of us even thought to get him a gift. It takes a special person to rationalize how burglarizing someone is really their fault. Anyway, all slack and sympathy went out the window immediately. Called the cops and he's dead to me. His birthday was coming up and he read your minds to know you weren't going to give him a gift. Had a similar situation. A guy I used to be friends with couldn't afford to pay his bills. It was middle of winter, his heat was shut off in his house, so I told him he could crash at my place until he figured it out. 3 days in and I'm coming home to my sink stacked with dishes, garbage everywhere, all my food gone. I told him he can't stay if he's not going to contribute or help out around the house. Couple days later I told him he had to go. Dude runs off to the west coast to essentially die, comes back a very mentally unhinged drug addict. I still talk to him online now and again, but I can't be his friend anymore. I have neighbors across the road who we extended ourselves to help out because they had young kids and seemed to be struggling. Well, They were really starting to take advantage to the point where we couldn't walk out of our house without them literally yelling for us because they needed a phone, a ladder, money, someone to drive them somewhere, diapers, our Wi-Fi password, our wood, etc. etc. This started happening every day and multiple times a day. It became ridiculous and oppressive. They have since pulled that shit with everyone else on our road, wearing out one generous person after the other. Once you realize people are merely moochers and are content to remain so, that's when you're done. Try having those people as family. My wife's oldest sister has 2 young daughters. Her and her husband are constantly getting brand new cars, the best liquor they can find, other expensive toys and such. I personally can't stand them much. Then my sister-in-law, who was on dialysis, found out she had a kidney donor. Big surgery several hours away. It was a whole thing. To help, my wife offered to get them groceries, so they gave her a list. Of course it was filled with a bunch of worthless shit. While we could technically afford it, we weren't exactly flush with cash. We had to move things around. This went on for a month, my wife making weekly trips. I was adamantly against it, which my wife said was unfair, as they needed the help. Upon the last trip she made, I got a call from my wife apologizing to me for not listening. Brother-in-law couldn't wait to show her the brand new movie theater room he put in. She was beyond pissed. All I could say was, I warned you. I lived next to someone just like this. 2 young kids, very friendly, then they just take advantage of you. I made the mistake of telling them I was a nanny and offering to babysit all of one time. After that it was seriously at least once a day they'd drop of their kids. It wasn't even like the kids were easy. 2 kids, still in diapers, who were little terrorizers. I finally told them to fuck off after they yelled at me for not being available. They knocked on my door, left their 2 young kids waiting there, and peaced out. I wasn't even there. Cops were called after a toddler in nothing but her diaper was wandering the apartments. My mother and her new husband had moved into a new place and invited all the kids over for Christmas. In previous years we would buy a whole turkey dinner from somewhere so no one, me, had to cook, so imagine my surprise when my husband and I walk in. My mother walks out of the kitchen, hands me a spoon and says, "Good, you're finally here," and goes to sit down in the living room. After a quick and awkward conversation, it was determined that my job was to make sure everything currently in progress, or not even started, got to the table on time, while everyone else socialized. Basically, I was the help and should have realized that, so any feelings I had about that were my fault. I was a good cook, and my mother taught me everything, so I owed her. So I did, and not knowing the family dynamics, my new step-siblings were very thankful and appreciative of all my efforts, which caused a meltdown from my mother about how we all should be thanking her. That was the first time I used a phrase that has come in handy for these situations: "I'm so sorry, it will never happen again." And it never did. They weren't happy when they finally realized what that meant. This is selfish, but I wanna know what the fallout was like. "I'm so sorry, it will never happen again." This is the most beautiful passive-aggressive line I have seen in years. Well done. When I dropped my rates significantly to help a struggling family with childcare. Blended family needing to find childcare for their emotionally damaged children who had been hospitalized by mum's boyfriend. Both parents worked and my wages were paid through a charity scheme. It was hell. They were utterly useless as people, let alone parents. They took the piss and ended up basically doing nothing with the house or children, and ended up owing me nearly $2,000 due to them committing benefit fraud and pocketing what they should have been passing on to me. The final straw was when they asked me to babysit that night as they needed to go out on the lash. It's been stressful whilst telling me they couldn't afford food, let alone pay me. Never again will I fall for a sob story. I used to volunteer for an organization which helped women get jobs. They'd send babysitters to women's homes so they could go to job interviews. It was totally fine if these moms did a quick essential errand, like grocery shopping, after their interview. I watched one woman's kids 5 times and assumed she just had bad luck in her interviews, but she always came back with a fresh manicure. I learned she'd been blowing off the interviews the organization had been setting up to get drinks with friends or get her nails and hair done. I had a co-worker in tears once telling me she had nothing to feed her kids for dinner, no laundry soap to wash their clothes, etc. etc. I fell for it, gave her money to buy the kids food and brought her some laundry stuff from home. The next day she shows up to work with 2 Red Bulls and a breakfast sandwich from a drive-through coffee stand with her nails done. Never again. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.